I'm sitting in the living room with my husband Damon's laptop open in front of me, staring at emails between him and three different divorce lawyers, and he just walked through the front door. But apparently, I'm the crazy one for discovering that. While I've been trying to save our marriage after he asked me to help with bills following his pay cut, he's been planning to destroy it. So this is what you've been doing, I say, gesturing to the screen showing his browser history full of legal websites. While I've been going to counseling, looking for jobs, trying to fix us, you've been planning to leave me? Damon sets down takeout from our favorite Thai place, and his face goes completely blank. Not guilty, not sorry, just blank. Scarlett, we need to talk. Talk? You've been talking plenty, to lawyers, about how I'm some kind of monster who abandoned you and stole your money. I'm reading directly from his emails where he describes me like I'm dangerous, like I'm abusive. Unauthorized withdrawal of marital funds, psychological torture. Really, Damon? He sits across from me and doesn't even try to deny it. I don't think we're compatible anymore. Compatible? We've been married for 4 years. We were happy before you decided to take a pay cut and then blame me for everything. What you did, disappearing, taking the $8,000, lying to my family. I can't trust you anymore. That's when he drops the bomb that changes everything. The savings account was in my name only. My lawyer says what you did could be considered theft. You could face criminal charges. Before I tell you how this nightmare started, please do me a small favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you think I'm getting unfairly judged here, and drop a comment letting me know what city you're watching from. It's incredible how these stories reach people everywhere, and I love seeing where my supporters are located. Now back to my story. I'm Scarlett, I'm 24, and this is the moment my whole world exploded. Because apparently, fighting for your marriage makes you a criminal, and apparently taking money from your own savings to survive after your husband demands you pay bills makes you a thief. Everyone's acting like I'm the villain here, but let me tell you how we really got to this point. His mom hasn't stopped calling me since the papers arrived. Mrs. Johnson, who used to call me her daughter, is now screaming about how could I steal their son's money and lie to the family. She called me this morning yelling, "Scarlett, how could you do this to Damon? He's been nothing but good to you." Lie? I told her exactly what happened, that Damon threw me out because I couldn't handle his new financial demands. I said, "Mrs. Johnson, he abandoned me. He said he couldn't support a wife anymore." Now she's acting like I made it all up, like I'm some master manipulator instead of a wife who was fighting for her marriage. He found out about the $8,000 yesterday when he was trying to pay bills, called me screaming about how I stole from him. "You took $8,000, Scarlett, 8,000, he yelled into the phone. I told him, "That was our money, Damon. I didn't steal anything." Stole? That was our money that I used to survive while he made me feel unwanted in my own home. I took what I needed to live while teaching him what life would be like without me. But apparently, teaching your husband a lesson about appreciation makes you a thief now. Nobody wants to hear how we got here, how he pushed me to this point with his impossible demands and selfish decisions. Everyone just sees the money and the hotel and thinks I'm crazy. But if they knew what really happened, if they understood what I've been dealing with, they'd realize I'm the victim here. So let me tell you how my perfect marriage turned into this nightmare. When we first got married 4 years ago, everything was perfect. Damon was making really good money, around 80 grand a year in some tech thing, which meant I didn't have to stress about getting some soul-crushing full-time job. I mean, why would I? He was handling everything just fine. I'd pick up little jobs here and there when I felt like it. You know, just for my own spending money. A few weeks at a retail place, maybe a month doing reception work somewhere. Nothing serious. It was perfect because I could quit whenever I wanted, and it didn't matter. That's what men do. They work hard so their wives can have a good life. My dad worked crazy hours, and my mom never complained. She knew her role. We were saving up for a house because we're stuck in this cramped condo that barely has room for both of us. The bedroom is so small, our bed takes up most of the space. And honestly, I was ready to have kids soon. I wanted the whole thing. Nice house, maybe a yard, white picket fence, the works. That American dream, you know. But here's the thing. Damon started getting all weird about work. He kept complaining about how many hours he was putting in, 50 to 60 hours a week, and how he was missing out on life. He'd come home saying things like, "I barely saw the sun today," or "I feel like I'm just existing, not living." I'm thinking, okay, so what? That's what men do. They work hard so their wives can have a good life. I tried to be supportive. I'd tell him he was doing great, that all his hard work was paying off, that we were so close to our goals. I'd rub his shoulders when he came home stressed and make his favorite dinner, but he wouldn't let it go. He kept saying he wanted to find something with better work-life balance. He'd talk about wanting to have hobbies again, wanting to travel, wanting to spend more time together. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? We're trying to save for a house and you want to work less. I'd say, Damon, we're building something here. This is temporary. But he'd shake his head and say, what's the point of having money if we never get to enjoy life? I didn't understand that logic at all. Then he actually did it. He found some Monday through Friday job, regular hours, and took a massive pay cut. We went from 80 grand to 55 grand, just like that. $25,000 less. I couldn't believe it. That's more than most people make in a year, just gone. When he told me about the job offer, I tried to talk him out of it. I said, Damon, think about this. We'll never be able to buy a house at this rate. What about kids? What about our future? But he said he'd already made up his mind. He said I'd agreed to help out more financially anyway, so it would all work out. I mean, technically I did say that during one conversation, but I thought he was just talking. You know how couples talk about hypothetical situations? I figured he'd realize how stupid it was to make less money and go back to his old schedule. I thought you understood, he said when I got upset. You said you'd be willing to work more if it meant I could have better hours. But that was just talk. I never meant immediately. The first few months weren't terrible. I got a part-time job at a restaurant downtown. It was actually kind of fun at first, and the tips weren't bad. I was covering groceries and some bills, feeling pretty good about myself. But then things got annoying. The manager was a control freak who expected us to stay late, and customers were really rude. I started dreading going in there. The money wasn't even that good once you factored in how much I was dealing with. The breaking point came when they wanted me to work a double shift on a weekend. I'd already put in my regular hours that week, and I was tired. So I called in sick. When I went in for my next shift, the manager gave me this whole lecture about reliability and commitment. I'm thinking, you're paying me $12 an hour plus tips, not exactly executive salary here. That's when I decided I was done. I quit right there on the spot. It felt amazing. When I told Damon what happened, he got worried about our budget. I told him we'd figure it out, that something better would come along. But weeks went by, and I wasn't really looking that hard. Everything was either full-time with terrible hours or part-time with terrible pay. I figured Damon would pick up extra work if things got tight. Meanwhile, I was actually enjoying having my time back. I could sleep in, catch up on shows, keep the house clean. It was like being on vacation. That's when Damon started getting resentful. He'd come home and I'd be relaxed, and he'd have this look like he was judging me. He started making little comments about how nice it must be to have so much free time. The worst part was when he started picking up overtime again, 6 days a week, 10 extra hours, just like before. Except now he was acting like it was my fault. Things came to a head on a Monday evening in November. We'd been tense for weeks, barely talking except about practical stuff. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I could tell something was building. After dinner, just spaghetti and jarred sauce, nothing fancy, he said we needed to talk about our finances. He had all these papers spread out on the kitchen table, bank statements, bills, budget worksheets. He explained how tight the budget was after his pay cut, how the overtime wasn't covering everything anymore. He showed me numbers, how we were spending more than we were making some months. Look at this, Scarlett. Last month, we spent $200 more than I brought home. The month before that, $150 more. Then he said it. I need you to help with bills now. This isn't sustainable. I was shocked. He asked me to help with bills after taking a pay cut. after everything he'd put us through with this work-life balance thing. Damon, I never agreed to this arrangement, I said. When he took that job, he said it would work out. You told me everything would be fine. You said we could make it work. I thought you'd find stable work by now, he said. It's been 2 months since you quit the restaurant. I was already looking for work, I said, which wasn't exactly true, but still. This wasn't my idea, I reminded him. The pay cut was his choice, not mine. He got frustrated and ran his hands through his hair. Scarlett, you haven't worked consistently in months. Before the restaurant, you had that retail job for 3 weeks. Before that, the reception job for a month. I told him I was being selective about opportunities. I wasn't going to take just anything. I have standards, Damon. I'm not going to work somewhere that doesn't respect me. We can't afford your selectiveness anymore, he said, and his voice was getting louder. I'm working 6 days a week, and we're still falling behind. So now I'm the problem? I asked. No, I'm the reason you're stressed. That's when he said it. The thing that changed everything. If you won't help with bills, I don't know what we're doing here. He threatened our marriage. Over money. How dare he threaten our marriage over money when he was the one who created this problem by taking a pay cut? I sat there staring at him, and I decided right then that I'd show him what life was like without me. Maybe when he was doing everything alone, working, cleaning, cooking, paying all the bills by himself, he'd realize what he'd lost. Fine, I said. If that's how you feel, maybe I should just leave. Scarlett, that's not what I meant. No, you made yourself very clear, I said. Apparently, I'm such a burden to you. Wednesday morning, after he left for work, I packed some essentials and found a hotel 20 minutes away. I used our savings account to pay for it. That money was as much mine as his. He was the one who made me feel like I had to leave. For 3 days, nothing. No frantic calls, no texts asking if I was okay. Thursday, he sent one casual text asking if I was coming home. That's it. So I took some of my electronics to make it obvious I was gone. And I even posted a fake photo at the airport when I dropped my friend Jenna off, making it look like I'd left town. Still nothing from him. By Friday, I was furious. That's when I called his mom. I called Mrs. Johnson sobbing. Damon abandoned me, I cried into the phone. He said he couldn't handle supporting a wife anymore. He threw me out over asking for help with one bill. She was horrified and started calling him immediately, demanding to know how he could treat his wife this way. His whole family started texting him, calling him heartless. That's also when I transferred $8,000 to my personal account. If his mom was going to hate him anyway, might as well be for something real. I waited until after I'd talked to his family. They'd already decided he was the villain. When Damon found out about the money and the family calls, he completely lost it. Saturday morning, he called me, and for the first time all week, he sounded actually panicked. Scarlett, what the hell did you tell my mother? She's been calling me nonstop saying I abandoned you. And where is the money? $8,000 is missing from our account. I told her the truth, I said calmly, that you kicked me out. I never kicked you out. You left. After you threatened our marriage over money. That's not... Scarlett, you need to come home. We need to talk about this. For the first time all week, he sounded actually worried. I thought maybe my plan had worked. We talked on the phone for almost an hour. I told him I'd been staying at a hotel nearby, that I'd needed some space to think about our relationship. He asked about the airport photo, and I had to admit I'd never actually left town. So you let me think you flew somewhere? Scarlett, I was worried sick when I saw that photo. You didn't seem worried, I said. You barely even texted me. I didn't know what to say. I thought you needed space. But instead of being relieved that I hadn't actually left town, he seemed angry about the deception. You manipulated me, and you turned my family against me with lies. They weren't lies. You did threaten to leave me. He said he'd been worried about me, that he'd missed me. He asked me to come home so we could talk in person. That's what I'd been waiting for him to ask me to come home, to want to work on our problems together. But when I got back to the condo Sunday evening, something felt different. He was polite but distant. We sat at the kitchen table, and he said we needed to establish some ground rules. We agreed to try counseling, which I thought was a good sign. Maybe a professional could help him understand why I'd felt so hurt and undervalued. I moved into the spare bedroom temporarily, just until we could sort things out. I thought it would be good for us to have some space while we worked through our issues, but Damon seemed to prefer it that way, which bothered me. Shouldn't he want me back in our bed? Shouldn't he miss sleeping next to his wife? 2 months after I'd moved back home, I thought we were finally getting somewhere. We'd been doing the counseling thing, Dr. Peterson, this older man who seemed to understand relationships. I'd started looking for work more seriously, checking job sites every day and even going to a few interviews. Damon seemed less angry about everything, more like his old self. He'd even brought me coffee in bed a few times. I'd even found a job possibility. Nothing amazing, just retail work at a department store in the mall. But it was something. 20 hours a week, $13 an hour, decent employee discount. I was planning to tell Damon about it that evening. But when I got home that afternoon from running errands, I found something that made my stomach drop. Damon had left his laptop open on the kitchen table, and I could see he'd been looking at legal websites. The screen showed some law firm's webpage about divorce proceedings. At first, I thought maybe he was researching something for work or helping a friend. But then I saw the browser history, and it was all divorce lawyers and legal advice about separation. Page after page about asset division, grounds for divorce, how to file papers. I sat down at the table, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. He'd been researching divorce attorneys for weeks. He'd already contacted 3 different law firms, Henderson and Associates, Miller Legal Group, and Stanton Family Law. There were emails about consultations, questions about asset division, discussions about grounds for divorce. This wasn't something he just started thinking about. This was a plan he'd been working on for a while, maybe since I'd come back. The worst part was reading his emails to the lawyers. He described me like I was some kind of monster. He talked about how I'd abandoned him, how I'd stolen our savings, how I'd psychologically tortured him by disappearing. He wrote things like, "She manipulated my family with false stories," and "She shows a pattern of financial irresponsibility." He made it sound like I was abusive, like I was dangerous. When he came home that evening, around 6:30, I was sitting in the living room with his laptop open in front of me. He walked in carrying takeout from our favorite Thai place, probably trying to butter me up, and saw what I was looking at. His face went completely blank. Not guilty, not sorry, just blank. "So this is what you've been doing?" I said, gesturing to the screen. "While I've been trying to save our marriage, going to counseling, looking for jobs, you've been planning to end it." He set down the food and sat across from me. He didn't even try to deny it. He just said we needed to talk, that he'd been thinking about our future, that he didn't think we were compatible anymore. "Compatible?" I said. "We've been married for 4 years. We've been happy before all this started." "Scarlett, what you did, disappearing, taking the money, lying to my family, I can't trust you anymore. I was hurt. You threatened our marriage." "I never threatened anything. I said we needed to figure out our finances." He said he'd already retained a lawyer, that he'd be filing papers soon. Then he dropped the bomb. He said the savings account had been in his name only, that technically what I'd done could be considered theft. I couldn't believe it. He was threatening to have me arrested over money from our joint savings. "You could face criminal charges," he said. "My lawyer says what you did meets the definition of theft." The divorce process was a complete nightmare. Damon's lawyer was this sharp woman named Rebecca Chen, who treated me like I was a criminal from day one. She'd somehow gotten copies of all my social media posts, bank statements, even texts between me and my friends. Everything I'd ever done was twisted into evidence that I was unstable, manipulative, and financially irresponsible. They brought up every little thing: how I'd quit jobs in the past, how I'd taken time off to find myself, how I'd used our savings for the hotel. They made it sound like I'd been planning to drain our accounts and run away forever. They had screenshots of my airport photo, making it seem like I was running away to start a new life somewhere. They had recordings of me admitting to the fake travel story, making it sound like I was some kind of pathological liar. My own family started turning against me when they heard Damon's side of the story. My mom called me crying after Damon's lawyer contacted them. "Scarlett, honey, how could you have done something so cruel to such a good man? He's been nothing but good to you." My dad was furious, telling me I'd embarrassed the family, that I needed to grow up and take responsibility for my actions. "You can't just take money and disappear when you're married," he said. "That's not how marriage works." The final divorce hearing was humiliating. Damon's lawyer presented her case like I was some kind of master manipulator who'd been using him for years. She talked about emotional abuse, financial irresponsibility, abandonment. She made it sound like I'd been planning this whole thing, like I was some kind of con artist. The judge barely looked at me when she made her ruling. I got almost nothing. Just enough money to rent a small apartment and cover basic expenses for a few months. No alimony, no share of the house savings, nothing. The judge said my actions had demonstrated a pattern of financial irresponsibility and emotional manipulation that warranted minimal support. The job search was a disaster. My work history was so patchy that nobody wanted to hire me for anything decent. The department store job fell through when they did a background check and found out about the divorce proceedings. I ended up taking a job at a fast food place called Quick Burger, making barely above minimum wage. $9.50 an hour, standing on my feet all day, dealing with rude customers who reminded me of the worst parts of the restaurant job, living alone in a crappy one-bedroom apartment across town, working a job I hated, barely making ends meet. The apartment was in this complex where half the units were empty and the other half had people who played music too loud at night. This wasn't how my life was supposed to turn out. The worst part was seeing Damon moving on. Through mutual friends, I heard he'd started dating someone new, some woman named Amanda he'd met at the gym. Apparently, she had a good job as a nurse, her own place, her own car. Everything I wasn't, according to him. People said they looked happy together, that she was really good for him. "She's so independent," I heard Sarah say. "She really has her life together." My parents barely spoke to me anymore. When they did, it was to ask when I was going to get my life together, when I was going to find a real job, when I was going to stop making excuses. They acted like my divorce was some kind of personal failure that reflected on them. "What will the neighbors think?" my mom would say. But even now, even after everything that happened, I can't help but think that things didn't have to end up this way. If Damon had just listened to me, if he'd understood why I was so upset, if he'd tried a little harder to make me feel valued, maybe we could have worked things out. Maybe I wouldn't have had to take such drastic measures to get his attention. Everyone wants to make me the villain in this story, but they don't understand what it was like living with someone who made you feel worthless. They don't understand what it's like to have your feelings dismissed, your contributions ignored, your concerns brushed aside. I may have handled things badly, but I was pushed to that point. So yeah, I'm bitter, I'm angry, I'm hurt, but I'm not sorry for standing up for myself, even if it didn't work out the way I planned. I'm not sorry for demanding better treatment, even if nobody else thinks I deserved it. And I'm definitely not sorry for showing Damon what life would be like without me, even if he decided he preferred it that way. Maybe someday he'll realize what he lost. Maybe someday he'll understand that I wasn't the monster everyone made me out to be. Maybe someday he'll miss what we had, even if it wasn't perfect. But by then, it'll be too late.